Chris Doering, SEC Network analyst. You remember him from playing wide out here in Washington back in the day. What's up, CD? How are you?
Good morning, boys. I appreciate your flexibility, man. I'm sitting here in rainy Charlotte, North Carolina, freezing my butt off. Had to do my hit back in Florida, and now happy to be on with you guys. So I appreciate you having me.
Of course, man. Well, the last 2 weeks has been just riveting with this Kiffin stuff, and you and I were talking about it on text, and he was talking to Florida, obviously talking to LSU. The fact that he didn't say, people, I'm not leaving Ole Miss, told you he was leaving Ole Miss. And then, of course, the reaction of the Ole Miss fans. How are you feeling about this entire saga with Kiffin going again? And he's one of the most fickle coaches out there. He's at one period, he went 3 consecutive years at 3 different spots as head coach. So you never know what he's going to do, but he had a good run at Ole Miss, and now he's going to be at LSU.
Yeah, so much to unpack. I mean, the Lane Kiffin saga has been tremendous content for guys like you and I. I mean, talking about this on the radio every single day has actually got to the point it's been a bit fatiguing, honestly. But, I think you're right. 2 things can be true at the same time. The guy can be an absolute offensive wizard, a great head coach, and can also be a bit of a disaster. And obviously, I was involved as well. I almost one that was thought to be in the mix, was actually thought to be the favorite for a while at Florida. That kind of didn't come to fruition, and a lot of negativity bubbled to the surface on Friday when the news was kind of broken that Florida was moving on from Lane Kiffin with the writing on the wall that he was going to go elsewhere. Florida didn't want to get stuck with not having their guys, so they moved on with Coach Summerall. And that was not met with a whole lot of excitement initially, but I think as time has passed the last few days, people are seeing some things they like about Summerall, and then they're also seeing the wake of Coach Kiffin's departure, and they think maybe they dodged a bullet to some degree. So I think you're right. He's gonna win at LSU. There's no doubt about it. But the answer is, how long is he going to be there? When's he going to leave? And what's the destruction going to look like after he does decide to move on?
Right. What I was reading some article yesterday. I don't know who wrote it. It was on CBS, but he was basically saying that inside sources said that initially Kiffin wanted to go to Florida, but that Scott Strickland, I think that's the AD's name at Florida. You could correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But he wasn't kind of seeing eye. He wasn't a huge Kiffin fan. He was still interested in Kiffin, but I think Kiffin wanted to bring his own GM. This guy Glasscock, I think is his name. Was that true that he actually would have preferred Florida over LSU?
Well, let's remember. I mean, the Florida job was open first. There was a period that that was the best job out there without any question. I do think Florida made him an initial offer early on. I do think there was discussion about the structure. Including a general manager that didn't answer to the head coach, but answered to the athletic department, and then were hired separately. And excuse me, I can't imagine an established coach, whether we're talking about Lane Kiffin or anybody else in the SEC, that would move into a situation like that with the expectation being as high as it is, and a general manager that was not hired by the coach, or at least having a large amount of say on. I do think Florida kind of moved on from that approach and was open to it, but I also think by that time LSU opened up and pretty much gave him carte blanche. And at the end of the day, I don't think a lot of what Lane says is necessarily true.
Right.
I do think what is true is that the salary allocation, the money that was being given to build a roster, is as high, probably more so than anywhere else he could have gone. So yeah, it was disappointing at first, but I can see how it worked out the way that it did in Baton Rouge for him.
We can only guess what he told his players when he had a team meeting saying, hey, fellas, I'm leaving to go to LSU. But it's obvious he's going to LSU because he can get a better roster. So what do you think he tells his guys at Ole Miss? I'm leaving because I just think the team's going to be better at LSU.
Well, a couple things. I don't think he expected the team to be as good as they ended up being this year. I mean, last year was the year that there was thought that they were going to be able to make a playoff run. Jackson Dart was back. There was a number of other veterans that were back. They fell short, lost a disappointing game early at home to Kentucky and lost one in November at Florida. So I don't think he expected to be in this situation. But, you know, I think the conversation, I don't know that he would have addressed that with the team, but I certainly imagine that there's a chunk of that roster that's going to end up in Baton Rouge next year. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the big deciding factors for Keith Carter was, you know, can we have him stay on and coach at Ole Miss while having access to every, you know, a recruit that we're trying to bring in, the database of you know, the additional time with the players to try to take some of those guys. I mean, it's the whole system is messed up in college football right now, from the college football calendar, you know, which is kind of the impetus for this debacle that's taking place in the most important part of the season, to the roster tampering and player movement. And you know, there's no real defined rules or enforcement of those rules. And so it is kind of the Wild West right now.
So I was kind of talking about this before we went to commercial, before we got to you, but it's not just Kiffin who's leaving, who's not going to be coaching this team in the playoffs. Charlie Weiss Jr., offensive coordinator, he's leaving. Joe Cox is leaving. He's the co-offensive coordinator. A wide receivers coach is leaving. I think there's another guy who's leaving. So they're losing like half their offensive staff, including Kiffin, who calls plays. Do you think that the college football committee will look at them differently, like they did Florida State a few years ago when they lost Jordan Travers?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, you can't tell me in one breath that you're concerned about your players and what's best for them, and then in the other breath, take all of the coaches that are going to be responsible for helping them compete in a ball game coming up.
Right.
So he tried to say that there was not a mandate about players or coaches having to get on the plane when he left on Sunday. I don't know that I believe that. I mean, when the whole Juice Kiffin came, the dog's not even his dog. I mean, there's a lot of fraudulence and smoke and mirrors going on out there right now. But as it relates to the committee, I think it's a different situation because the Jordan Travis injury happened during the season. We got to watch what Florida State looked like against the Gators. We got to watch what Florida State looked like in the ACC championship game. And we could tell that there was a totally different product on the field without Jordan Travis. There has not been a game played since this has kind of gone down. There's no data point for the committee to be able to point to. In fact, I think the team actually focused really well with this cloud of uncertainty hanging over their head. And if anything, it could be a positive. So there's no way they're leaving them out of the college football playoff field at 11-1 from the SEC, regardless of who's coaching.
I just thought they might dip them. They might drop them a few spots. I didn't
do that. I mean, this. Can you imagine? I don't know if you guys have been to Oxford before, but it's an amazing place. If they get a chance to host, which they should in the opening round, it's going to be an incredible environment. I'm hoping that I get sent there to cover it. But if the committee does bump them down because of that, I think it's an absolute travesty. And again, this is a coach-induced thing that's affecting the student athletes who we talked about caring about the most over and over, which is an absolute joke.
Chris, fill us in on Pete Golding, who takes over for Kiffin at Ole Miss. He gets kind of lost in the wake of all this. Kiffin going to LSU. What does he bring to the table? He's been named the permanent coach now, not just an interim.
Yeah, I think Keith Carter nailed it, and he moved decisively in naming Pete Golding, as you said, not only the interim coach, but the permanent coach. It's a guy that's been the defensive coordinator there for the last few years, has done a great job with that unit. In fact, the reason why this program has moved forward over the last couple of years to being, in national prominence is because of the defense's improvement. So I think he's done a great job there. But talking with people in Oxford, when this announcement was made, the team overwhelmingly showed their support for Pete. They showed excitement about him leading the way. His wife is from Mississippi. I believe she went to Ole Miss as well. So this is a guy that's vested in wanting to be there at the school. And I think everybody's rallied around, from the team to the fans to the collective. I mean, you're going to see an overwhelming amount of money continue to get poured in just to prove Lane Kiffin wrong, that they can't compete. This is going to, in the end, I think, do a lot to kind of build the program up even more. And Pete Golding inherits something. At the end of the day, I mean, Lane Kiffin said in his interview with Marty Smith on Sunday, I hope after a while they can appreciate what we did in the last 6 years. There's a lot to appreciate, and I think this program has come a long way and now is in good hands, and hopefully Pete Golding can keep it on the track.
Right.
So do you like what your alma mater did, hiring Sumrall?
Yeah, I think initially there was disappointment, as I said before, about Lane Kiffin not being the guy. But I think as you look deeper into it, you're getting a guy in Coach Summerall that's won at 2 different Group of 5 schools. He comes in with a lot of passion and emotion on the sideline, something that the fans got upset about with Napier, that he wasn't all that passionate or emotional on the sideline. I think the biggest key is who they hire from a coordinator standpoint. He acknowledged right off the jump that Florida's used to having entertaining, high-flying offenses that can score a lot of points, and so he's set to bring that along with a defensive coordinator that's probably of the same mindset as him as a defensive-minded coach. He played at Kentucky, he coached at Kentucky, so he's been in this league. He understands the SEC. It wasn't Lane Kiffin, it wasn't the flashiest hire, but I think it was a very stable hire that is going to work out. It's a different hire than Napier, as everybody tried to label it Napier 2.0. But I think that's completely unfair. I think this is a guy that's ascending, and I credit Scott Strickland, the athletic director, for moving quickly, because this was about to be a done deal between Sumrall and Auburn. He didn't want to lose the guy that was 1B on his list, so he moved quickly on Friday and got the deal done.
Man, I know it's crazy how all these changes happened within minutes.
Yeah.
Look, last question. I know you're an SEC guy, but you're very familiar with James Franklin going to Tech. Home run hire, talking about money kind of being the influx of the additional resources, $240 million over the next 4 years. He's already getting some really good recruits. He flipped a quarterback that was going to Penn State, this kid from California who's now going to go to Tech. So he's getting the recruits. Your thoughts on James Franklin going to Virginia Tech? And I've been talking to a lot of people who are very close to the program, and they can't wait until next year. Yeah,
I'm excited about it. I mean, I do think Virginia Tech, again, they moved quickly to get the deal done there. I don't know, maybe if James Franklin is still available, maybe Florida State moves on from Mike Norvell. Maybe, there's some other jobs that would have opened up. So securing their guy was key. The commitment and the money that you talked about from the athletic department and collectives is key. There's certain programs, I think, in college football that you want to be good, that you need to be good to help the overall product. And Virginia Tech, in my mind, is one. I got a chance to cover James Franklin when he was at Vanderbilt a while back, and think a lot of him as a coach. I mean, if you can go into Vanderbilt and do what James Franklin did with that program, you can go coach anywhere. So I know it didn't end well at Penn State and didn't get to where they ultimately wanted to be, but I think this is a major upgrade at Virginia Tech, and coupled with the financial support, I have no doubt that they're going to be able to take advantage of a weak ACC.
Real quick, do you like Georgia or Bama?
Man, I have not. I mean, I haven't finished up my prep yet. Initially, I'd like to say Georgia, but then again, you see Kirby. I think he's 1-7 against Alabama since taking over that job in Athens, and the game's not in Athens as it was early in the season where they lost. It's in Atlanta. But Alabama's been pretty good in that city. So I'm not sure yet, but my first inclination is to lean Georgia probably.
Chris, thanks as always for the time, man. We'll have you on again soon.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon, man.
Yep.
Thank you, buddy.
That's Chris Doering, SEC Network analyst. Don't forget Will Dawkins, Wizards general manager. He'll join us coming up at 8:45.
Off a win.
Off a big win over the Bucks last night at Capital One Arena. When we come back, we'll get into NFL playoff teams, pros and cons, which teams have a realistic shot at winning or getting to the Super Bowl. You can weigh in on that as well. 800-636-1067. We're the Junks. We'll be right back.